here. Yeah. So, okay. Oh, we're live. We're all live. That's a good thing. All right. Well, good evening, Gateway, and good evening to anyone that is watching this evening through YouTube or Facebook. Thank you for joining us and being a part of School of the Bible. Um, it's it's just a great time to be here at Gateway, and it's a different time. It's a different season, and I'm looking forward. There's lots of changes that are taking place, so I'm excited about that. Excited about the changes, but sometimes it gets a little messy. Sometimes growth requires change, and change can be messy and be very uncomfortable. So sometimes you're placed in positions of being stretched. You can't do things the way you've always done them before. You can't think the way you've always thought. You can't do as you've always done. And sometimes you just don't really know what you need to do. So you have to really depend on the Holy Ghost, like Apostle's been saying, to lead you, to guide you, to direct you. Because you don't want the same thing that you've always had. You want more. And I don't know how many people are in that place. I just know that I'm in that place. And I'm in a place where I'm being stretched. I'm in a place where I'm uncomfortable. I'm in a place where I depend on God in a way I have not had to before. And not afraid, but it's not fear, but it's not knowing what to expect when I get there. And having to let go of things that I've been comfortable with, and willing to accept something or place I'm not comfortable. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for me. And I tell people all the time it's a challenge, but it's a challenge for me, you know. So I want to open up with prayer tonight. I need my mind to be clear, and I really want God to have his way. I don't plan on us being here long tonight. I really don't. I don't think that's necessary. I just want God to have his way. And whatever needs to be said, I want it to be said. I can prepare whatever I need to prepare, but whoever's listening tonight, whatever they need to hear, that's what I want to be said. You know, I'm not an expert on anything, and anything that I say, this is one thing I've learned about leadership. You will continually be learning new things about leadership. And the only way you can learn, really, truly learn about leadership is by doing it. You can go to a seminar. You can sit there. You can read books. You can read articles. You can watch other people. You can listen to what other people say. But you actually have to put it into practice in your own life. And that's really the only way it works. It's like anything else. You have to actually do it and put it into practice. And so it's so much easier when you read about it than when you actually have to do it. And so some of the things that I know about it is that it's causing me to have to examine myself and question my motive about things. You know, why do I do what I do? Why do I do what I do? You know, I told Andy the other night, we were talking about it, I guess it was last week. I said, you know, I am driven in a different kind of way. I don't really understand it. I was just made that way, I guess. I don't know. I know part of it is I know that many years ago, because of things that I faced and situations that I went through, there was a time in my life when I didn't feel like I had anybody. Even at that particular time, at that particular moment, my mom and I didn't have a relationship. My brother and I didn't have a relationship. I didn't have a relationship with the Cokers. I didn't have a relationship with anybody, nobody. It was just me. And I'll never forget feeling so alone. But the one thing that I truly remember is that I found out in that time, that was probably one of the lowest points in my life, when I didn't feel like I had anything to live for, no reason to exist. And God made himself very real to me. And I realized that God never left me. He never left me. And he says that, but to read that is one thing. To know that is something entirely different. And when you're faced with a situation like that, that was the best thing that ever could have happened to me. It changed my relationship with God because, see, this is what happened at that point. I wasn't driven to do something because somebody else thought it was a good idea or a great idea or because I heard it somewhere and I just picked it up and I wanted to help somebody or support somebody. I did it because I loved God. And if that was what God wanted me to do, that was what I was going to do. And I knew that there would be a grace for me to do what I needed to do. And it didn't matter what happened, how I was inconvenienced. If I felt like doing it or didn't feel like doing it, I was going to do it anyway because God loved me when really I don't know that He should have. But He loved me and He was there for me. And I owe Him everything. I owe Him everything. And so at that point, that's when I said, whatever you want me to do, wherever you want me to go, that's what I will do. That's where I will go. And so I am driven and pushed because of that. I can always go back to that point. You never left me. You were always there. So God, I don't care how tired I am. I don't care how hard it is. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I don't care what anybody else says. I don't care what's happened in the past. I don't care about what I don't know about the future. God, I know you are with me. And because of that, I will do and be whatever you need me to be. If you just need me to just sit in the corner, I'll do that. But if you need me to get in front of people, I'll do that too. Whatever it is you need me to do. And if sometimes I need to sit in the corner and I want to sit in the corner, and guess what? He lets me sit there. And those are some of the best times. Some of the best times in my life are when I'm able to sit down and listen to other people and what they have to say. Because that's when I learn the most about myself and about other people and about God at that particular time. Sometimes I need to hear from other people. And so I appreciate and value those times. And one thing I've learned to do is I've learned to esteem those that others may not esteem and see value and worth in. I do. I see value and worth in people that sometimes they can't even see in themselves. And sometimes it gets me in trouble. But this is the thing. It's like Andy was saying the other day, and we say it all the time. The love of God has been shed abroad in my heart by the Holy Ghost, and I'm ever ready to believe the best, to say the best, and think the best of others and myself at all times. But the thing is that I always know they're not perfect, so remember that, but I still got to love them anyway. That's what Miss Geraldine told me. She said, honey, we just have to love them anyway. That's what she did. She was the greatest example of that of anybody I've ever known. Love them anyway. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you feel like. It doesn't matter what they feel like. It doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter what somebody else did. Love them anyway. That's what you do. You got to love them anyway. And so anytime she prayed, guess what? Her prayers were answered. Why? Because she loved people and she loved God. And God heard her prayers. Her faith worked. Faith works by love. And she was the greatest example that we could have. She's one of the greatest leaders that I've ever known. She led by example. And if you ever had the opportunity to just sit and see, I took advantage of those times. I could do that. Some people never had the opportunity to sit there with her like I got to sit with her. When we came back a couple of years ago, we're not even going there, but it's okay. We're talking about influence tonight. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the law of influence. So I'm just going to continue to go in this direction. I was going to talk about Joshua and all of that, but that's quite okay. We're talking about influence. There's people that have had influence in our lives. And so we all can go back and look at that and say, who are the people that have had the most influence in my life? Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. Just because they have influence doesn't mean that it's all good. We've had bad influence. We've had bad leaders in our life. And I'm not talking about people like in the church. I'm just talking about in general. We've had people, they were leaders. They were leading us somewhere. They were taking us somewhere, but their influence was not good. It was bad. But yet we've had those that were good in our life as well. And so she was one of those people. She was a leader in my life. She was a mentor in my life. She was someone that was an example for me to follow. She was not somebody of a lot of words, but I'm going to tell you, when she spoke the words that she spoke, there was power in the words that she spoke. There were words that changed my life. She would just follow you around. Louie and I looked at each other the other day, and we laughed when he was talking about how Miss Geraldine followed. Apostle David was talking about how she followed him through the house. David, just come to church with me. David, just come to church with me. David, just come to church with me. And we looked at each other, and Louie had a big old smile, and I looked at him. I said, oh, I can see her doing that. And we just laughed because that was the way she was. She was that way. She was such a jokester, and she was such a prankster, and she was mischievous in some ways. And she was very stubborn. She was very determined. And once she set her mind to something, it was going to happen. But the one thing, and I appreciated that about her. I valued that about her. I really did. And a lot of people were like, well, she doesn't say anything. She does say something to the ones that would take the time or could take the time, because, you know, I don't think she really ever saw herself as the leader that she was. But we wouldn't be here today if it hadn't been for her. Because she's the one that got Apostle David born again. She's the one that had made him go to church. She's the one that followed him around the house until he said, yes, I'll go, and the Holy Ghost fell on him. She is a leader, and she influenced all of us. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to be like her. We can't be like her. She is her. She is her. You are you. And that's what God expects us to be, and that's what God wants us to be. But her influence over me and over everyone else in this house is definitely seen. It's very tangible. There's not a person here that was not influenced by her. There's not a person here whose life was not touched because of her. Because she loved us. She accepted us. She saw value in us. She saw worth in us. And even if someone hurt her, she still loved them anyway. And I can tell you this, I do know this, there were plenty of times for her not to love. And yet she made the decision to love. And I think that I don't really know all of that. I don't know. But there had to be a time when she recognized what God had done for her. And it didn't matter. All this other didn't matter. She was going to love. She made that decision. And so she was a person of influence in my life and the life of everybody that's here and the life of those that are not even here tonight. And what she did and the words that she spoke still carry today and still are making an impact because they are imprinted in us. And so what we do, and that's one of the things that I found as I get older and as because I'm just getting older, and it's okay. We've already talked about that, haven't we? It's okay to be older. The only way to not be older is not be here anymore. So until God's done with me here on this earth, I'm going to stay here, and I'm just going to get older. And so, but I'm going to do everything that He wants me to do as long as I can do what there needs to be done. So I'm just believing. Somebody, I told somebody the other day at work, it's hard for me to believe I am the oldest one out there. But I am the oldest person out there, and I said something to somebody. This is a commercial break. I said, yeah, I'm about to hit the big 5'5". And she was like, oh, you don't look like that, Miss Stephanie. And I said, well, thanks. I appreciate that. Don't always feel that way sometimes. But I said, really, I don't feel like I should be 55. I don't feel like it. She said, well, how old do you feel? I said, I feel like I should at least be in my 40s. I feel like I got another 15 years left in me. You know what I'm saying? Let's just extend it on, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't feel like it yet. So I don't. I really don't. I just keep going till I sit down in the chair. and now I'm out just like that. So you don't have to worry about it. I do sleep at night. I get plenty of rest. That is something that comes, I think, with age. But there again, I wake up at the crack of dawn on Saturday morning. So I don't understand that. I used to sleep till like 12 or 1 o'clock, but not anymore. But, she said, well, Miss Stephanie, you're only 2 years older than my mama. And I was like, okay, thank you. Only two. So anyway, that's a commercial break. All right, we got to have those. It's a Wednesday night here at Gateway, and it's a challenge for people to be here. But who are the influencers in your life? Who are the people that have influenced you and gotten you to the place that you're at now? Good or bad, either way. And so only you can really answer that question. And I think sometimes you don't really know till you're faced with a situation. And then all of a sudden something will just rise up on the inside of you and you realize, I've heard this before. Oh, okay. I know how to deal with this situation. And so you begin to make decisions and choices based off of the influence that's in your life. So one of the most important things about influence is that we pick the right people, that we hang out with the right people, that we and you know, as I get older, my group has become smaller and smaller and smaller. You know, as far as intimate friends, you know, it just it's very small, and yet I have some people that I've been friends with for years. You know, I was counting how many years I've been friends with Miss Evans, and I was like, oh, I can't believe this. I met her back in 2013, and this is 2024. And I thought, wow. She's not a person I see all the time, but she is a person that when we pick up the phone, we talk for a good 2 hours and have to make ourselves get off the phone. And I'm not a person that likes to talk on the phone. I think anybody that knows me knows I don't like to talk on the phone. But there's just such a refreshing when we talk with one another. We build each other up. We're not talking about people. We're just talking about life and how we're thankful for life. And when I get off that phone, I feel energized. And so, you know, I appreciate those types of people in my life. And so I have to be careful about that. I have to be careful what I listen to, who I hang out with. And, you know, so I can tie this into Joshua after all, can I? Okay. Well, proud of that. Thank you, Holy Ghost. Thank you. It won't be anything, so I have no idea where this is going, but it's okay. You know, last night I had one of the craziest dreams. I say it was a crazy dream. It was a dream. I don't know, maybe it's what I ate. Maybe it's because it was such a late night when I went to bed. I don't think I did eat late last night, which is not good for you to do, but I think it was 9 o'clock and I just finished eating because I hadn't been home. And so, anyway, and it wasn't because I was at work over there. I was doing other stuff. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So, yeah, I don't care about that. Can y'all tell I just got off work? I've been around kids all day today. I try to block out the noise. I'll be honest with you. I'm the kind of person, I am very easily distracted. And so it's difficult sometimes when I have to focus on something to get that task completed, when you hear somebody hollering and screaming from this room and that room and this room, and I'm thinking, I know the screams, I know the voices, because after a while you know which child it belongs to. And so you're, oh, okay, I hear them now. Oh, that's the baby room this time. Oh, that's the school kids. Okay, that's pre-K. Oh, that's the wall. It's shaking. I think the walls are going to fall down, you know. And so it's difficult for me to do that, but I'll bring it back in anyway. But I had this dream, and in this dream, I just thought it was very interesting. I started to not feel good. I wasn't feeling good in the dream, and I was feeling weak. I was just feeling extremely tired and weak. And I was like, what is wrong with me? I'm not sick. I shouldn't be sick. What's wrong with me? And all of a sudden, I just thought, I feel something on my leg. And I pulled up my pant leg. And when I did, my leg was covered in ticks. Huge, fat ticks. There were so many on there that you couldn't even tell that I had a leg. There were so many of them. And my whole right side, and I lifted up my shirt, and it was all under my shirt. My entire right side was covered with ticks. And they had been there for a while. And all I could think about for a tick is that a tick is something that sucks your blood, which is your life, right out of you. And it will make you sick, and it will kill you. And I thought, man, have I not had things that have not been sucking me dry? Have you ever had those things that have just sucked you dry? Have you ever had those around you that have just sucked you dry? Okay. Well, I've experienced quite a bit of that. And you do as a leader. You experience that. And so sometimes as a leader, you have to make those decisions. And just like she said, you have to love them anyway, but you have to make difficult decisions sometimes. And when you make those decisions, sometimes they don't like that. You give them an opportunity. You give them the chance. You say, okay, but you can't lower. I think it was Nick Saban that said that, mediocre people will never understand overachievers, and overachievers will never understand mediocre people. We can't understand one another. We have a goal in sight. We can see it, just like Joshua could see the promised land. He saw what God had for them. Even though these people couldn't see what there was, he could see it. But, it's, and I lost my train of thought. But that's one of the things we deal with when we're in leadership or as a leader. It's one of the greatest challenges that we have. Because where I'm at, I don't want to hurt you. I'm really not wanting to hurt you. I'm trying to help you as much as I can. And then after a while, I realize how much it's sucking the life out of me. And if it's sucking the life out of me and it's killing me, then that means I can't go where I need to go. And so there comes a time when you have to cut yourself off from that. And that's what you do. And so, that's just what you do. And that's what you do in life in general. You have to do that. I've had relationships in the past that I had to do that with because they were not going where I was going. Whether it was in a work relationship or a family relationship or, I got married when I was 28, almost 29. I could have gotten married much younger than that. But the relationship was not going in the direction that I needed to go in. They did not have the same goals in sight as I had. When I got married, I wasn't looking for somebody to, to be my provider. I wasn't looking for that. I really wasn't looking for that. I wasn't looking for somebody to, at that point, I really wasn't. I had already gone through so much, waiting so long and thinking that it wasn't ever going to happen. And I had just waited and waited and waited and waited. At that point, I wanted to find someone who wanted the same things, believed the same things. And that was who I wanted to join myself with, period. And so that's what I got. And he had a tremendous influence over my life because when I got here, I was quiet, wouldn't say anything. And he would say things to me sometimes, and I'm talking about Pastor Andy. He would say things sometimes he knew they were wrong just to get me to say, "You're wrong." Because he said he didn't want to be married to somebody who would just agree with him. He wanted somebody that not fight with, but spar with, someone that would stand up to him, someone that would talk to him, someone that would converse with him, someone that would point out, you're not seeing things clearly. And he had to get me to the place, and he did. When I say he had to get me, Holy Ghost did, but he used him to get me to the place that I could do that. And there's not a problem with me doing that now at all. I do it out of respect, but I can do that because I recognize, and I do that with him, and he does that with me, and that helps our relationship. And we are driven in a certain direction, and that's what we were talking about last week. How we are driven in a certain direction. Our life, everything that we do, is built around the vision of this church. We just don't think about it any other way. We don't think. When we first got married, we used to go spend our nights at the bookstore, going and buying books, so that we could learn and grow and be developed. That's what we did. We spent all our money. He was always that way, wasn't he, James? And so, I was not the kind of person to hang around in a bookstore because I'm not what you call a reader. But I learned to go and buy the things that I needed, and I will read those things. I'm not someone that just picks it up for fun. He was someone that picks it up for fun. And so, but we did that. We invested in that. And so he influenced me in that area. And that, by doing that, it changed my perspective on a lot of things by gaining knowledge and wisdom and insight in areas that I didn't have before then. And so I'm thankful for that. There's been other people that have been influential in my life. There was a time when Joshua, he wasn't able to influence them, even though he and Caleb went over and they saw what was there. But they couldn't influence all of them. They didn't have influence over, they only had influence over their tribes, the ones that they had relationship with. And, he grew in areas. And as he grew in those areas, it caused his influence to grow in the life of more people. It expanded. It went beyond his small group, and it went on to more. That's why it's so good for you to sit down and listen to somebody who has some years in their life, because they've experienced some things that you have not experienced at 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. You still haven't experienced a lot of things. Take advantage of those times in your life. My grandfather was probably one of the most influential people in my life. And it was important because, I didn't have a dad. And, I had a dad. Of course, we all have dads. But my dad, and this is something that, my dad had some issues. And it all went back to his childhood and the abuse and things that he experienced and what he went through when he was in Vietnam. And so my dad was an alcoholic, and he was very, very abusive to my mom, very abusive. And so, and he just simply, I'll never forget, it was when I was going through remember that really difficult time I was telling y'all about years ago over there on Rocky Ford? And that was one of the greatest times of my life, because there was more change that took place in me then, and God was able to do more in me then. Remember I told you he never left me, he never forsook me, he was always there with me? That was at that time when he showed me something one day I was just sitting on the couch right there in that living room, and it was like somebody just took a curtain and pulled it back, and I saw this little boy being thrown into the hog pen. And I knew who the little boy was. It was my daddy. And so I talked to my mom about it. I didn't understand it, and she said, his dad, my grandfather, when he disciplined him, he would just throw him in the hog pen and leave him there that night. Well, can you imagine what you would feel as a child being thrown into a hog pen and left there at night by your dad, your protector, your provider? How would you feel? There's 12 of you. You're the only one there. How come all 11 brothers and sisters get to stay in the house tonight, but you have to go stay in the hog pen? It gave him a certain image, and it messed him up. And so, he was just ripe for, being the kind of person that he was. And so I saw that day, I knew then, and this is what I knew when I saw that, and this was the Holy Ghost. He said, I knew then, and it was just a knowing. He didn't do what he did. He never rejected me. He just simply couldn't be what I needed him to be, and that was my daddy. And it began to change the way I saw myself, because I understood that I wasn't less than everybody else. It was just that he couldn't be because he was so tormented. And I had the opportunity to tell him that before he died. Daddy, I want you to know I love you. And I remember this time and this time and this time and this time. And I choose to remember these good times. And So my daddy had an influence in my life because I knew in his heart he loved me. He never hurt me. He never physically harmed me because he knew what he was capable of, so he never spanked me or my brother. But at the same time, he just could never be what we needed him to be. So my grandfather stepped in and became what I needed him to be. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. And he was a man who spoke into my life about every area of my life. And so when I say I was raised by someone from World War II, I was raised from someone from World War II. And they are a different generation. They think differently. They do differently. They live differently. Their value system was completely different. And even though he didn't believe in some of the things that I believe in, he never told me I was wrong for believing those things. He was Baptist, so he didn't believe in speaking in tongues. But he knew that God healed him, and he wasn't shy about telling people that God healed him, supernaturally healed him. He didn't know that when your body gets hot in a certain area and you're laying in bed, that's God's healing power touching your body. He had already made plans to provide for his family. And so there's many, many stories and many, many things that he did. But he influenced me probably the most out of anybody in my life. You know, I think about he always made things fun. He always made things enjoyable. You know, even when it seemed impossible, there was always a way, and he always found a way. He taught me to be thankful for everything. You know, we would sit there at night and we wouldn't like what my grandmother fixed because, you know, they came from a different generation and we wanted pizza or spaghetti or something like that. And that was not what we were going to eat. We were going to have cornbread or biscuits, and some kind of meat and some kind of vegetable and probably some rice. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I don't want to eat this. He didn't care if we wanted to or not. That's what he wanted. It was his house. It was his chair. We ate when he said eat. We ate what he said eat. He was the one that provided the roof. He's the one who provided the food. It was his rules, and that's what we did. And I remember us sitting there one night and complaining about what we had to eat. And he looked at us and he said, "Do you have 2 hands?" "Yes, sir." "Do you have 2 feet?" "Yes, sir." He says, "Some people don't have hands and feet, but you have hands and feet. You have everything that you need." And he said, "And you have food to eat. You know, there's some starving children in this world and they don't have anything to eat. I don't think you have anything to be ungrateful for. I think you should be thankful for what you have." "Yes, sir." And you know, being grateful about things in your life, it causes doors to open up for you because you're just grateful and you're thankful. And it gives God an opportunity to move in your life and do things in your life. How many people have you had? How many of you had grandparents that were influential in your life? How many of you had aunts and uncles that were influential in your life? And see, as I get older, I realize that it's gone from them being influential in my life. Now I have people that are younger than me, and I am influential in their life. So I have to choose my words wisely. I have to watch my actions. And I have to be sensitive to the Holy Ghost because God's working in them, and He can flow through me to reach them if He needs to. But I have to be obedient and do what He says. So it's up to me. I'm a leader in some of their lives. I have influence in their lives. You know, I can't make them do the right thing. I can't make anybody do the right thing. Or what I think, you know, just because I think it's the right thing don't mean it's the right thing. I have to trust God to take care of them. I have to trust God to take care of my nieces and my nephews. I don't have kids of my own, but I tell you what, I love those kids. If they were mine, I don't think I could love them anymore. I would just take them. And I'm not saying all of them, but there are some of them. No. What I'm saying, let me finish that because that sounded bad. There are some of them that have said, "I wish you'd been my mom." because they, as their aunt, I'm their aunt, and I do things for them that they wish their mom had done. So I said, well, you know what? I'm your aunt. I'm not your mama. I'm your aunt. And I'm going to be the best possible aunt I can be for you. You have a mama who loves you, and I'm your aunt who loves you, so you're doubly blessed. So I'm here for you, and I'll be here for you. And if you need that safe place, I'm here for you. So Joshua's influence grew, and because he was right in what he believed and what he saw, and he tried to live right. He did it. He was a man of prayer. He prayed. He didn't just, he had a relationship with Moses, but he wasn't doing what he did and just riding on what we call Moses' coattail. He had his own relationship with God. He had his own. And that's one of the things, your relationship with God, if you ever get to the place that you don't think that you need to grow anymore, you need to do a checkup, because that is something that always needs to grow. That is something that always needs to change. And that's something that we have to continually push forward in, because life will pull us away. Distractions will pull us away. So that's so important. And we know by being in prayer, having a relationship with God, that's number one. He was obedient. He obeyed God to the best of his ability as a servant, as a warrior, and as a leader. And when he spoke to the children of Israel later on, they followed him because he spoke as somebody who knew God. Some people, they've had some kind of encounter with God. Some people, I don't know if they've had one or not. But there's just some people, and it may seem like the most unspiritual thing in the world, but you can tell they have a relationship with God. And those are the people I like to sit. Can I just listen to you talk? You can just tell me a story. I like your stories, because I'll take your stories and I'll apply that to the next situation in my life. And that's what I do. My grandfather, story after story after story, just the crazy things that he did. He did some crazy things. And he was kind of a gambler kind of man. You know what I'm saying? And so he took chances. He was one to take chances. I mean, look at who I married. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and he was not one that said a lot, but when he said it, he meant what he said. He was very bold in what he said, and he didn't care if you liked it or didn't like it. He was a man that he respected people that stood for what they believed in. And he would tell people, I don't have any respect for you. Now, I don't go up to people. I need to tell them that's you need to read How to Be a People Person. You don't walk up to people and tell them, I don't have any respect for you because you don't have a backbone. You are wishy-washy. You don't stand for anything, so I don't have any respect for you. And I'm thinking, that's not how you win friends and influence people. You know what I'm saying? So he had not read those books, okay? So I could influence him now and tell him how you might want to read this or listen to it or something, because I think it'll carry you a little further in life if you could tone that mouth down just a little bit. But he was one, he believed what he believed, and he did not back down. And he was a man of character and integrity, and he took care of his family. He provided for his family. And so, when I say, he used to tell me all the time, Annie and I, we laughed about it the other day, and it was his way of saying, because I see it all the time, especially in women, I see, anyway. All right, so I'm just going to say this in a nice way. Okay. He said, it's not pretty when you use your looks to get what you want. When you start doing that, you're not pretty anymore. He said, so don't ever think that you're pretty. That's what he told me. He said, don't ever think you're pretty. So I used to go around all the time, I'm not pretty, 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 I'm not pretty. But what he was telling me is don't manipulate to get what you want. Don't manipulate to get what you want. So when I say he influenced me tremendously. Don't use your gifts, your talents, your looks to get what you want. Don't use anything. Even being married, don't do that. Right. You're going to miss out on the best things if you're trying to manipulate to get what you want. So don't do that. Just, you love them, they love you. Be open and honest with one another. And you'll get so much more out of life that way. You know, you're going to miss out on the best parts when you do that. And the best relationships. Because I'm going to tell you, people that are open and honest aren't going to hang out with people that manipulate and try to control. Just not going to do it. You're just going to cut that off. You're just going to say, I'm not having it. Not tonight. All right. So, but let me get back to Joshua. We need to talk about him just a little bit more. Because so Joshua was a man of faith. He was one of courage and faith. And he just didn't back down. He stood, he fought. He just did not do that. And you know, with God, God puts no limitations on faith, and faith puts no limitations on God. So that's just a reminder to us to look at him. That to me, when just reading about him and the things that he faced, the things that he stood, you know, I'm sure he probably had these emotions. You know, he was a human. He had emotions. We face these things that seem like, how in the world will I conquer this? And yet he did. He had faith in God because he had a relationship with God. And he knew if he was obedient, God was with him. He had made a commitment. His level of commitment was shown when he was willing to give his life for what he believed. And I think that's the thing, is that there are people that are willing to give their life for what they believe. And when you're willing to do that, you won't back down. Things can't stop. You may get slowed down. You may get bogged down. You may get distracted. You may not see things clearly. You may not even talk straight for a little while. But you know, God has a way of getting us back on track. And he'll use those people that are in our lives that can influence us to get us back where we need to be, to straighten us out, to get us to where we need to see clearly, to see the way that we need to be. And the final thing is his relationship with Moses. He had a relationship with Moses. Moses was his mentor. And so I'd like to read some more about that again, about the relationship with Moses. But I think that is so, so, so important. You know, we are so blessed to have Apostle David. Apostle David has been a tremendous influence in my life. And I think I have enjoyed being around him more now than I ever have. Because he's so open, he's so honest, he's so transparent, he's so kind, he's so loving. And, you know, I think any other words to describe him would be so terribly wrong and a disjustice to him and where God has brought him from. You know, he was always, you know, that's one thing I know about, and I can say this, that's one thing I know about the Coker men and even the women. They are so, they might come across a certain way. They're fighters. They just are not going to back down. You can forget it. You can forget it. They're not going to back down. But they have huge, huge, huge hearts. And they love God. And God has their heart. And when God has their heart, that means they love the people. Because if something's not right in them, God can get a hold of them and he'll do it. And so, but you know, Apostle David, I think he's influenced all of us. And not just here, but think about Central America. Think about China. Think of the different places. Think of the places where the word has been taken and other people have heard the words that he has spoken and released. Think about the people he's prayed for. Think about, you know, when we went to Hiawassee, somebody came up to Andy and told him about, well, it wasn't just one person. You know, we got treated a certain way when we went to Hiawassee because of Apostle David. Because of Apostle David. Because we had a relationship with Apostle Greg Roberts. Because because of that, there were certain people that we had relationship with, and by having relationship with those people, it opened doors for us to have relationships with other people. You know, that's an area that's really closed off to people from the outside. But because of the people that had influence over us and the people that we had relationship with, and because they had such influence over them, they recognized us as being, hey, we can include them and trust them and have relationship with them as well. All right. Is everybody good? All right. I'll close it with that. I really like when it doesn't go anything like I had planned. So yeah, I like that. And but I don't know about you. And see, I feel good now. My mind is clear now, so that's good. My mind was just so, and that's okay too. You know, I'm just thankful, and and I know you guys are too. And so God joins thankful people together. You're going to be around. I'm only going to be around. I'll be around other people and try to make them thankful, I guess, Try to point out, oh, isn't this good? Isn't this great? We have to encourage ourselves, don't we, Miss Robin? We had a really rough week last week. Robin walked out and didn't say bye. I knew she had had a bad day. She didn't stop because I think she's afraid I'd ask her to stay. She got out of there as quickly as she could. But it's funny. You have to laugh about things sometimes. I try because I've cried enough as it is, and you can't punch people in the face, I've thought about it. Can I do it and get away with it? I don't think you can. I think I'd get in trouble. And so I'm thinking, that's not a witness for God. So restrain your emotions and get control of yourself and ask God for forgiveness and get yourself straight. So we all have areas we have to work on, right? All right. Well, I love each and every one of you. I hope you have a good night, and I hope you feel refreshed tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday, and school is beginning soon. And so everybody's lives that may have slowed down for a little while is fixing to speed back up. And mine's just going to keep on going. I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't think I would. I don't think I would. So I had some years where I didn't have a whole lot to do. I didn't like it very much. I just like to know what I'm doing is God and not just something that's good. I don't want to waste my time. I want to know it's God. And when I know that, it's worthwhile. All right. Well, y'all have a good night.